As a woman in Iran, you always think you are a second-class citizen.
The main factor that separated you from your home. And bringing it to a new country is a cultural issue.
I mean the events that have happened in Iran in the last few months. We feel that we have become very close to the people inside Iran. This is the fourth episode of the Chamedan podcast, which will be recorded in May 2023. In this podcast, we listen to the stories and experiences of immigrants. This podcast is available on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and podcast applications. I'm Layla from Canada, along with Murdad from America, are the producers of this podcast.
Today, Mrs. Azeen from Canada is our guest. And we hope to have a friendly conversation with them today. Welcome.
Hello to you two and good listeners of your podcast.
The first question we usually ask the guest: what made you think of immigration?
I immigrated almost 6 years ago. I came to Canada on a student visa, and the first thing that made me come to Canada was not economic reasons. That is, I did not emigrate because of Iran's economic instability and financial issues. It is mostly because of the cultural issues that bothered me the most. Lately, lawlessness, disobeying traffic rules, and many other things must have happened, and the absence of these things bothers me a lot. This made me decide to leave Iran anyway. At first, I decided to go to Europe, but things didn't work out. But because I had relatives in Canada, that's why I decided to immigrate to Canada. I applied through student, and the student visa procedures were done very quickly for me. I applied within a few months. I was accepted and got a visa. Somehow everything happened quickly. It wasn't like I wanted to delay too much. Later, when I came here, I studied here and then changed it to a work visa and stayed again.
You said about culture. Meaning the factor that separated you from your home and brought you to another country was a cultural issue.
The fact that you as a woman in Iran always think that you are a second-class citizen. Nothing is as easy for women as it should be, because of these factors and these issues, as well as the bad culture that existed, and street harassment and bad experiences. These were things for me. Economic matters were not important to me. At the same time, the economic conditions were not as terrible as they are now. Of course, I must say that there was always instability. Let me give you a simple example in Iran. Our house was on the street. In front of our house there was a step where the car was coming from the way. Inside our house, we had problems every day. A person would park his car in front of the parking lot and leave. And it was a constant nuisance for us, and no one helped us. We called the police, but we didn't help. You can't go and complain that someone came and left his car and destroyed the time of our lives. This issue was very simple, but it was a constant nuisance, and it was never solved. We were always caught up in it.
That means Iran is not a form of social security. Leaving economic issues aside, in fact, social relations are not progressing as they should and there is no real security. There is not enough security for us women in Iran. What challenges did you face before immigrating or after immigrating?
Since I started to implement my decision, I was not successful in Europe, and all my requests were rejected. But as soon as I applied for Canada, it happened very quickly. I don't know if it is easy now or if it was easy then, but I had no problem coming at all. But when I came here, I faced many problems. The first of which I can say was the language. You think your language is good, and you can handle your conversations, but in practice you see that there is not much difference. Well, there are different dialects, and many times people used to speak. I did not realize that the city where I was staying was bilingual. And I can say that I had somehow lost my confidence. One of the other things that were very interesting to me is that you don't know where you are as an adult, and it's interesting that you face problems with a simple address. And it gives me a lot of stress, and you think I'll tell you what to do if I get lost. I wanted to go somewhere. I looked at the map many times and the stress took over my whole being. During college and university, everyone was a student. Very well. But interestingly, my biggest problem was finding a job. Before the pandemic and COVID, almost all business cases were face-to-face. I remember some places where I was looking for work. It was like an industrial town, and it was winter, so I was very worried. Because there was snow and ice everywhere and I didn't have a car. I thought to myself that if I fall down here I might die. No one knows where I am, and they won't even find me, and I have to go everywhere by myself to find a job, and I get there by public bus, and those days were very hard for me, and I can say they were the hardest days I went through before I found my first job.
Do you think something inside you will change if you return to Iran?
I think that if I return, Iran will be difficult for many things. I don't know if I can drive with the previous driving style. I feel that I got used to the rules, and that following the rules is a normal thing. For example, when the red light is good, everyone knows that they must stop, and it is not a cause for concern. And I am sure that if I go to Iran, I will suffer more than before. I love Iran, and I would like to go back to my country since I came. I haven't been there yet and see what has changed during this time.
Tell me about the things you lost and the things you gained. Compare what you have achieved.
The biggest thing that people lose in their old age is migration. He loses the social circle around him, friends, family, and those he grew up with. When I was in Iran, I had very good friends, but now I don't have any. And this circle of friends around a person disappears in Iran. Maybe you can make this circle of friends easier in your new country at a young age. It is true that when you come here, for example, you meet new people at university. Many of these students have their conditions. They may leave this city, and those old friendships will no longer be formed in the old way. I think that when you are in Iran, you have many choices to find friends, to find the best friends, and you try to choose those who are very similar to you, and things that are very similar to you, and that you have in common stay together. I find it almost impossible to find this social circle abroad. Well, this is the reason the people you meet here are from different countries and have different cultures. You must select one person as a friend. It's kind of like saying you can't find the friend you really want. I think that single people are more bothered than married people. That is, if a person is married and immigrates, his point of view is different from single and lonely people. And finding friends is one of the biggest challenges, so I lost my circle of friends. But what did I get? I got social security in the city where we are. I didn't have a car for about a year. I was going here and there by public transport, but I didn't have the same problems as before. Even until late many times, no problem happened to me, and I experienced the necessary security that I always wished for during this time. This can be a very good feeling, and you know that women in Iran are not very comfortable. We experience here, they will never experience. To complete the story, I can say that losing that friendship ring is because friends have grown up together since childhood, and that is something we can never get back.
Do you consider yourself a brave person because of immigration? Those who migrated compared to those who did not migrate. They think they have done a great job and consider themselves brave. Now you are also considered brave and you think what you did is a kind of bravery.
In my opinion, all people who migrate are brave people, because many times a person is alone and must do many things alone, and this gives you a lot of confidence, and see for yourself that you are going through difficult days. and you can solve your problems very easily. From illness, from lack of money, from unemployment, and from the fact that you are single and have no support and loneliness, and you always must rely on yourself because you have no companion to help you. Little by little, you believe that you can handle anything, and every time something happens, you say to yourself, I'm over it, that it's not worse than this, and I've seen worse than that. So, I can handle myself. So actually migration has given me the confidence and courage to solve any problem on my own. Because one day I would get sick, I would go to the doctor alone, and no one would take care of me. Consequently, this confidence may be perceived as bravery.
Since these events happened in Iran, we have more sympathy for the Iranian people. What do you do with patriotism?
Really, all of us were somehow happy about these events, and we hoped that the events that benefit all people would be done well. I even remember, among our friends, in the meetings we had, we used to ask each other if the situation in the country improved, and when will he return. And everyone hoped that the conditions would be favorable. Everyone wants to live in their own land and speak their mother tongue, and unfortunately, due to the incidents that happened, many young people were killed, and many were injured. It makes me very sad and disappointed because of all the deaths and injuries we caused to the youth. And it didn't work.
You said you were brave and were able to adapt to the new society. Weak pause, but you lost the emotional struggle. It wasn't what you wanted. You don't realize that you have two types of interaction with the new environment. On the one hand, you adapted very well in terms of immigration and obtaining a visa and managed many things yourself. Maybe you acted bravely as you said, but I say you didn't have the courage to find a good friend. My question is, what do you think immigration has done to your identity? And what will happen to you in the future?
It is very difficult to answer this question. It's like you don't know who you are anymore. You don't exactly belong here because your life experience is different from people who are here. And when I look at my friends who live in Iran, I see that I also separated from them. And as if I somehow got away from them. Those concerns are no longer my concern, and we no longer have a common concern, and somehow, we are stuck in the middle. No, you completely belong to the Iranian society, and could not fully integrate into the new society. This situation exists for all immigrants, especially those who immigrated in older age. If I want to summarize, at the end of my speech in the question, I distanced myself from those who are in Iran. I do not have a strong bond with those who are here, and it is as if I have no identity.
You mentioned work and job search. I want to know what is the difference between work experience in Iran and work experience in Canada.
It was very different for me, because I used to work in very small companies in Iran, but here I work in very big companies. My work environment in Iran was very friendly. We were like a family. But here, that situation does not exist at all, because here you are a number for the company, a force, and if they don't need you, they will fire you very easily. My conclusion is that the capitalist system and corporations are looking for what you can do for them. If you don't have profit, they tell you to leave. But in Iran, at least in the company where I worked, manpower was very important to them, and if I had a problem, they would try to solve it. It completely changed my attitude because the company thinks about its own interests. I also said that I should think about myself, and if I find a better job, I will leave that job and go somewhere else. I have moved a lot in recent years, and I found new companies and got better jobs. I no longer have the strong loyalty I had to the company I had in Iran. I also saw here that if a project is not profitable, it closes the whole project and sends its people and personnel to their lives. Everyone is fired.
Transfers somehow help you progress and are in your favor.
It leads to progress, but you will never feel a sense of belonging to that company, and the relationship is only adjusted based on the interests of the company and the employee towards each other.
Let's change the topic first. Madam, when was the last time you cried?
I was very hopeful in these recent events. I saw the efforts of the people, and I saw the gatherings in Canada, and so many compatriots gathered. I had tears in my eyes many times.
Don't you think you have left a lot of yourself in Iran?
I thought there were many things left of me in Iran.
What do you think now?
Now I think I belong to that Iranian society. At that time, I used to infer like this and said that I was tired of all this lawlessness and lack of culture. But the recent events and the unity of the people made me realize that no, I left a lot of myself in Iran. With the smallest thing, his heart is with Iran, his heart is with the people of Iran. And it is as if a piece of our existence always remains in Iran. Before, I didn't watch many Iranian movies, and I didn't follow Iranian news. But after these events, I saw that it's not for me. Iran has become the most important place in the world. And what happened was more important to my people than anything else in the world.
Tell me very quickly which part of your body you think you left behind in Iran.
I think my heart.
Do you envision a future for yourself? Or do you see a future for yourself?
I am very hopeful for the future here because there is economic stability and progress is easy, and there is no special difference between men and women, and there are no obstacles to progress. Anyone who tries can improve. But sometimes when I get old and retire, I think I still wonder if I belong here. What I got and my fear disappeared. So, I can go to other countries and think about living there. I think about another country. That's because I don't think that sense of belonging will ever form again. I like it here. I think the root that should be formed is not formed.
You think there is something you haven't said.
What I want to say is that during immigration, there are many difficult moments and very lonely moments, and there is no one to consult with, and you must make many decisions alone. And since I did not have a permanent residence from the first day, always stress whether I can get a residence or not. Such moments are very difficult, and the only thing that moves people forward is that everything will get better, and conditions will be favorable. This is hope.
Many people who watch our programs ask you to have the last word.
For the person who immigrated or didn't immigrate, or for those who are thinking about immigrating.
I don't think that everyone who stayed in Iran made a mistake. I say that one should look at their circumstances. This migration should not be done just because of the wave that has formed. Because there are really many difficulties here. But if you think about it, it is good for you to start this migration. But if it doesn't work, don't be upset and tell people who are single to try to find a friend for themselves and complete their circle of friends. Because it helps a person a lot on difficult days.
You mentioned the difficulties. Let me ask you a question. The types of difficulties you faced in immigration were different.
It's harder here at first because you don't know anything. You know what I'm saying, you get to be 30 years old, and you don't know anything. For example, you don't know anything about the rules, and it's very stressful. What you are doing is getting into trouble, or you don't know whether what you are doing is right or wrong. But with time you will learn a lot, and as you learn the stress will decrease. For example, concerns like you don't know the language, you don't know the rules, you got a visa, you don't have a job, and those who came as students know how much pressure they must endure. But what bothers me is that I feel like I have no roots here at all. You know what I'm saying. You know that I have nothing to do with the quality of Iran.
In the initial stages of immigration, you enter the destination country. Usually, some compatriots tell them to be afraid of Iranians, stay away from them, and stay away from them. I don't know if you have addressed this issue or not, and do you know where this sentence came from and how we Iranians can remove this sentence? You know you are too young to do this. Be the beginning, you can build a very good foundation. So that the compatriots do not face this sentence in the future. I explained all this to ask you a question. When you arrived in Canada, did you encounter people who made you afraid of your fellow countrymen?
I think most of those who say these things are those who have been living abroad for many years. But when I came to the student groups, we were together and I was still a student. I did not see this feeling in the new generation. I rarely saw it. I think maybe I had a bad experience before. I have many Iranian friends here and I had no bad experience with Iranians. Maybe I was very lucky. The students I see are very friendly and help each other. What I think we need to understand is that in Iran there are many people around us, and we have much more power to choose. And the people around you are very much like you. You went to school together, went out together, and worked together. Perhaps one of the main reasons is that people come from different cities and different cultures. These are the differences. The point is to respect these differences and accept people as they are. And we are not supposed to be the same. For example, I lived in Tehran and knew the neighborhoods of Tehran. And many of my friends came here from different cities and did not know the neighborhoods of Tehran. And the things I was saying were unfamiliar to them, and I had an unreasonable expectation that they would know what I was saying. As immigrants come from different countries of Iran, they also come from different cities, and these cities have different cultures. So, when we see people from different countries with different cultures come together in a society like Canada, we can also have this exercise between us, that people come from different cities of Iran, and they also have their own urban culture, and this is very good practice. My impression is that in the new generation, this matter has improved, and they look at the negative aspects less, and they can get along better. And I strongly disagree with the advice to stay away from Iranians. This is unacceptable. I think the people who say these things need to reconsider, because they may have a bad experience or it is their own fault. In any case, it is wrong to generalize and spread this thinking, because we all know that Iranians are good people.
Thank you for accepting our invitation and coming. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you. I also thank you for coming and honestly telling us what you had in your heart and what experiences you had.
Thank you for giving me time. It was a very good conversation. Bye.